Deep inside yourself, are you a good guy trying to be bad, or are you a bad guy trying to be good?
I think I am a bad guy that's trying to be good.
Has there ever been a man as controversial as Jon Jones? A fighter with near limitless potential, all of which realized to become a man who inside the cage is regarded as the greatest of all time.
You ever been afraid of somebody?
Yes.
Who?
I did not think I was going to beat Jon Jones the night that I fought Jon.
But underneath his good guy psychological veneer, a front of faith and family values, is a man disgraced and dismayed, clambering together the pieces of a life he seems so certain of destroying.
Starfighter Jon Bones Jones.
Jon Jones.
Jon Jones has been arrested in Las Vegas.
What did I do? The 34-year-old has been charged with misdemeanor battery, domestic violence, and damaging a vehicle. I hate you, Jones!
This guy's got a lot of demons, man. A lot of demons.
His most recent actions in holding the division hostage prove that he is a man who deep inside his psyche simply won't ever change. This is how and why everybody hates Jon Jones. The year is 2011. Bones Jones is now the youngest champion in the sport's history at just 23, demolishing newly minted Hall of Famer Shogun Rua to claim the throne. But now, with gold in his hands, that athlete mindset was gone. In its wake, a man easily tempted by the bottle, the fame, the nightlife, all of which easily accessible as the UFC's new poster boy. With 3 title defenses just over a year past his ascension, the fan perception was mostly positive. But the DWI in the same year would be the first sign of a man mentally fractured, struggling to handle the fame and fortune, and perhaps the demons within him too. A man who had cultivated a near symbiotic relationship with alcohol and drugs to turn himself into the perfect fighter.
1 week before every fight, I would go out and I would get blacked out wasted. And my logic was, if this guy were to beat me somehow, I can look myself in the mirror and say that, well, I lost because I got hammered the week before the fight.
So it's a built-in safety net.
It was a safety net. Yeah, exactly.
It would be his boss of all people that would again pile on the pressure and perhaps catalyze Jones's mental destruction. With Jon scheduled against Dan Henderson for a routine defense at UFC 151, the latter's injury days before the bout would leave one Chael P. Sonnen as the man to step in. But at the advice of Jones's coaches, a matchup he would not risk taking. As a result, it left an already decaying event now without its main attraction, lighting the fuse for Dana White to go on the offensive against his biggest star and his team.
He's been a champion that hasn't been very popular, and I don't think that this is going to do wonders for his popularity. As far as the relationship with us, me and Lorenzo are both disgusted. You know what? Good for you, Jon Jones. You're rich and you got some money. You don't need to take this fight. But there's a bunch of guys on the undercard. This is how they feed their family. And this is how they make a living.
Despite the boss's scathing remarks, Jones's legacy would continue to be charted. More title defenses, more victories, many of which immortalized as some of the greatest in history. But it would be the matchup with one Daniel D.C. Cormier that truly unraveled his psyche, revealing the villain underneath, the sinister underbelly that perhaps lay there all of this time.
Hey, are you still there?
I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here. You are just the fakest person. I actually admire that you can actually be this fake. I wish they would let me next door so I could spit in your face.
You know I would absolutely kill you if you ever did something like that,
You
right?
could never kill me.
Oh, I bet you I could.
Then you should try, Jon. You really should try, Jon.
No, I would literally kill you if you spit in my face.
Yeah, let's try that, Jon.
Literally kill you.
Let's try that, Jon.
Their build-up fueled by hatred. The now iconic presser face-off summarizes the feud to a T, an event which would lead to Jones being penalized with a fine. The opportunity to clash, legally this time, would eventually come at UFC 182. And with the feud and fanfare boiling at fever pitch, it was time.
Good kick by Jones. Look at this. Johnson, it does DC! Look at this. Goes the distance.
Jon Bones Jones!
Jon Jones may have had his detractors, and the lack of sportsmanship at the end of it all likely only added to that number. But at this point, it was hard to deny his greatness. A man who, unlike anyone before him, had seemed near enough immortal and finding victory with an aura of confidence unmatched. But his story, even as the irrefutable pound-for-pound king, was far from over.
Turkey 911, operator 3830, where is your emergency?
Yeah, there was a car accident right here on Wansboro and Southern Boulevard.
Dude, I wonder if this is that fighter's car.
John Jones?
Now to the latest on the investigation to John Bones Jones.
Albuquerque police are still looking for UFC champ John Bones Jones for a hit-and-run crash that happened yesterday.
Kind of freaked out, and I was just more upset, you know, that he couldn't at least stayed and at least said, I'm sorry or something.
He's got to, you know, accept responsibility here, and there's got to be some kind of punishment.
Most of Jones's incriminating actions up to this point were solely on his shoulders, with no one else in the firing line. But this time was different. Gross negligence. A pregnant woman left injured as a result, and a man looking out solely for his own self-interests in the most dire of situations.
I was definitely disoriented.
Disoriented from the accident?
From the accident, for sure. Just kind of like, what the hell just happened? It was a really big hit. It all happened so fast, and I knew I smelled like alcohol. I just felt like if the police came out, it would be a bad situation for me.
The punishment, at least in the UFC's eyes, fit the crime. 18 months of supervised probation, and in the world of mixed martial arts, his belt stripped, suspended from the company, and his legacy forever tarnished. In the wake of his actions, old rival Daniel Cormier would find the throne and begin charting what was to many becoming an even greater legacy. Jones, on the other hand, would finally make his return against the admittedly ill-matched Ovince St. Peru for the interim belt, as a rematch of Cormier fell through due to injury. Dominance, as was expected of a man with Jones's fighting caliber, and it felt like no time had even passed as the gold was wrapped around his waist. It's somewhat telling that even after all of his actions, his debauchery and crimes, much of the fan sentiment was overwhelmingly positive. But that feeling would falter come UFC 200, in which his anticipated rematch of Cormier would finally be coming to fruition.
Come on, like, is there anything I can do? Like, I'll sign a release and we can just fight. Can't do it.
Days before, in the biggest clash on quite literally the biggest stage in the sport's history, Jones had decimated his reputation instantaneously. To many, his out-of-the-cage dealings were somehow excusable, but to be branded as a drug cheat in the world of MMA is the sport's equivalent of a death sentence.
I wouldn't take anything that would enhance my game. I wouldn't cheat. That's just not who I am.
Public enemy number one. And despite a protest of innocence, the B sample would confirm USADA's suspicions. A year's suspension, and the belt stripped away once more. But eventually, the two rivals would clash. The UFC was never going to miss out on their rematch when considering the monetary ramifications. Too much was at stake, and damaging just one little bit more of the sport's integrity for a super fight was par for the course. UFC 214, and the fight long awaited was finally to take place. Unlike their last outing, in which Jones's brash but purposeful mindset led him to fan plaudits, he was now the ultimate villain, the bad guy.
You're a bum. That's why you looked like a bum last time.
How do I look, DC?
Hey, all that's all just, hey, listen, that's all just for show.
You're like a crackhead with a suit on.
I could look like a crackhead with a suit on, but I've never been a crackhead like you don't. So you can say I look like one, but I've never been one.
Something out of a pantomime, Bones was looking to take everything DC had worked for amidst his absence. The court hearings, the charges, the steroids, all of it in the past. It was the here and now, the present. And the fan sentiment at the end of it all teetered on whoever the victor.
Jones trying to press the issue here. Trying to survive.
He's out. He's out.
John Jones has done it.
It's mixed martial arts, and so often there is no good ending, no ride into the sunset. And although Cormier had fared better than in their initial duel, he now lay shattered, broken, dispatched by his greatest rival in a rematch he had long aimed to find redemption through. Jones would come out the other side as the victor, and once more MMA's poster boy.
Devastating news for John Jones. John Jones tested positive for turinabol from a sample the day before your guys' fight, of course, at UFC 214 in July.
You don't cheat the sport. You don't cheat the fans. You don't cheat me. You have all the physical advantages, sir. Once again, this guy has made a mockery of the sport.
It never is simple with John Jones, and thus for a time, order was restored. Cormier once more the light heavyweight ruler, and Jones banned from the sport for the next 15 months. Once a cheat, always a cheat. And Jones's long list of sins had one more addition. Daniel, on the other hand, would go on to ascend to combat sports godhood in the watchful eyes of the fans. Double champ status by decimating Stipe Miocic before vacating the light heavyweight throne to focus on pastures anew. And it was there, in that gap, that Jones would eventually return.
The rematch is upon us. Jon Jones, Alexander Gustafsson.
Alex just got to get in that boxing range, and he can't get there. So that's been the issue so far.
There he goes. Good entry there by Jones. He gets his first takedown.
Top. Elbows by Jones. Oh, big shots.
Jones has regained the throne.
Wow.
And new Jon Bones Jones.
Integrity shattered, reputation ruined, and yet here he stood once more as the light heavyweight king. Dispatching his old rival Alexander Gustafsson with ease salvaged some reputation on the fighting front, as their initial scrap was one of the rare times Bones has ever seen mortal in the octagon. 2 more defenses over the perennial contenders in Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos were also clear, but it was apparent that the tide was shifting. Jones's performances no longer channeled the fierce, chilling resolve that he once maintained, the psychological factor inside and out of the cage that drove him this far. He was now a man simply going through the motions, his victories now a routine pit stop in the long road to retirement. And in many ways, that speaks to the levels Jones was at. To be at the very top of the sport, and yet see any contenders in front of you as nothing more than simple distractions. Truly a luxury only the greatest fighters can claim to have. This mindset shift would culminate in a matchup with the devastator Dominic Reyes. A bout that, like almost everyone before it, seemed nothing but a foregone conclusion. The classic story of a young, hungry challenger being put in his place and silenced.
Like DC, like all of them, bro. You're a pawn in this game. You're just a piece in the puzzle, bro. I'm trying to be great, bro, and you're just a part of it. Everyone's undefeated before they fight me, bro.
Even with Reyes' undefeated 12-0 record, the overall fan perception in favor of the champion was a testament to his fighting ability. However, upon the cage door being locked shut tight, and Bruce Buffer reading out those iconic lines, the tide would begin to shift.
Big shot. Both land on that one.
Oh, beautiful left uppercut.
Dominic Reyes and Jon Jones go the 25-minute distance tonight.
Boy, this one in the hands of the judges, wow.
Oh, yeah.
By unanimous decision, and still
By almost every metric, Reyes had been the winner, and yet it was Bones who would have his hand raised that night. Even the champion's biggest defenders saw his victory as debatable. But mixed martial arts is a cruel mistress. But as is all too common in Jones's story, the good guy doesn't always win.
What are the emotions going through your head right now?
Disappointment. I am proud of myself, though. Man, I know I won that fight. I know I won that fight. I was in that fight. I don't have to watch the replay. I was there. I made Jon Jones look like just a man. I brought the fight to him, and man.
Yes, the cry for robbery had and still continues to be overused today, but this one was undisputable. Dominic had everything unjustly taken away, and now upon seeing his downfall in 2024 only makes his story sadder as we imagine what could have been. And with those transpiring events, the hatred of Jones had raised just that little bit more. Some would make the claim that he had simply fell out of love with the game. So long at the top had left him complacent, and maybe even bored with the contenders ahead of him. And without a goal in life, something to drive you, it's all too easy to fall off the right track.
Hey, Jason. Hello, sir. Officer Brown, Albuquerque Police. Did you just hear a gunshot?
I did it.
You did hear one?
Yeah, I did.
Where'd it come from?
I have to do a DWI investigation. Okay, sir. Walk me this way. What you're gonna do is you can count backwards, starting from number 47, ending with the number 32.
47, 46, 45, 43, 44, 43. My daughter's dyslexic.
So I do have to place you under arrest for DWI, okay?
Yes, sir.
His arrest, an all too familiar occurrence at this point, would result in a year's probation, which compared to his other crimes was generous to say the least. That claim of his complacency may have warranted some merit too, as his eventual vacation of the light heavyweight throne would soon prove. But this time it was of his own accord, rather than any legal means.
Some obviously outside contender series news yesterday. Jon Jones announced he was vacating the light heavyweight title. Is that official?
It's official, yeah. When this whole heavyweight thing plays out, we'll see what works for him.
Jones, with all his success and all his failures, was chasing more. Right or wrong, it may have well have been the only thing keeping him in check, sane, on the teetering edge of the moral scales. The quest for heavyweight glory had begun, but even with such lofty ambitions, his inner demons could not be quelled.
Metro Police, Flores 18405, how may I help you?
We've got a possible DV call, domestic violence call. Female is bleeding from the nose and mouth.
Jones was arrested in Las Vegas Friday morning, just hours after being inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. Jones is charged with domestic battery and tampering with a vehicle for allegedly headbutting a police car.
I hate you. I hate you.
A despicable action that embodied the type of man that underneath it all, the success, the glory, Jones always was. And I think this statement from Jones himself after his hit and run incident years prior summarizes it perfectly.
You know, like somebody said to me, they said, you know, second chances shouldn't be handed out. You know, they should be earned, you know?
Jones had done little to align himself with that notion. Time after time, the same mistakes, the same apologies. Two years mostly out of the limelight. The sport had moved on, of course, drastically. New eras, new kings, legacies built and stories spun. But with Francis Ngannou's vacation of the throne, the heavyweight division now lay without a ruler, and its crown ripe for the taking. A move that had been touted by Jones throughout the years. It was finally time to make the jump. Fighting up a weight class would bring new challenges, new factors. The added weight would no doubt affect Jones's speed, his versatility, but of course, his power too. And the litmus test for all of Jones's new weapons came in the Frenchman Cyril Gane. Touted as the division's best striker, he represented the new wave of MMA. Just as there was a cycle with Jones's crimes and apologies, so too there was with his victories. The same detractors, claiming that this will be the time he loses, the next in line, the one to topple his legacy. A prediction, of course, which would fail to come to fruition.
He's putting pressure. Well, he's the GOAT. That's
the
it.
baddest man on the planet.
He's the GOAT.
The new heavyweight king, now a two-weight champion, and to many cemented as the greatest ever. A defense against heavyweight GOAT and Stipe Miocic would be the cherry on top to finalize everything he had worked for. One last dance to wrap up his career and grant him a ride off into retirement unscathed. UFC 295 was the set date on the penultimate card of 2023.
What's up, everybody? Here we are again. You know, Jon Jones was training last night, got injured. He was wrestling, and he tore the tendon that connects your pec to the bone, off the bone. 8 months, gonna need surgery. He's out.
A twist of fate from the gods of mixed martial arts had put the opportunity for gold in the hands of one Englishman, Tom Aspinall. With Jones out and Miocic refusing to fight a replacement, the UFC had cobbled together a matchup between Tom and the sport's current premier knockout artist, Sergey Pavlovich. The former would slay the Russian, and now with two belts in circulation, there seemed to be one logical answer: the age-old tradition. Find out who's the rightful heir to the throne. This is the way of things in the UFC, the way it has always been, and the belt simply must be unified. The question of who is truly the greatest has to be answered, but Jones has become the first to undermine such a practice, likely through the UFC's help.
Really, I want Jon Jones next. I feel like we need to unify the title right now. There's two heavyweight champions of the world, and in my opinion, this is not right.
We've got the champion right here.
It's very odd, and obviously I don't want to sit here slagging off my bosses, but it's not right. It's not right. Like, there can't be fucking two heavyweight champions. There can't be. There's one guy, there's one face, one name, and let's find out who that is.
Whilst a healthy and prime Aspinall lays waiting, Jones remains adamant on a matchup with the now aging Stipe, a man who, although the greatest heavyweight of all time with 4 title defenses, is now a decaying shell of his former self. It's a matchup that, other than Jones, no one wants to see. And now it seems Jones's horizons have only broadened further. A new target, a new enemy in his sights, one handpicked intentionally with the goal of grabbing an easy win and riding off into retirement undefeated. An adversary who at first glance you would assume would be the last one would ever pick. But the now two-weight champion in Alex Poatan Pereira was the perfect choice for Jones's interests. A man with the biggest global draw, a headlining winner of UFC 300, and of course the monetary value that comes with this pay-per-view sales. Stylistically, it's a matchup tailor-made. The Brazilian's lack of elite grappling pedigree will likely see him suffer the same fate as that of Cyril Gane. Now, it's the boldest of claims to say that a man with the fighting pedigree of Jon Jones is avoiding a potential matchup, but when you are hiding Twitter replies that reflect the fan perception, I'd say that's a smoking barrel. It is truly hard to deny the accomplishments of Jon Jones. His dominance and versatility in the cage is unrivaled now, and likely forever. But through all of his wrongdoings outside of it, capturing the positive fan perception is one accolade he could simply never claim to have. As great fighters with lesser legacies are able to do what he couldn't and have immortalized themselves as favorites, it's fair to say that Jon Bones Jones only has himself to blame.